and welcome to You Talking to Me. The Special Committee of the European Parliament on Tax Rulings began work in March this year. How committed is the European Parliament to fight tax evasion, and what can be achieved by this committee? We have two members of the European Parliament with us today and two members of this special committee. I'm happy to welcome Mr. Michael Theurer. He is from the German Liberals.
Hello, Danièle.
And welcome. And Mr. Frank Engel. He is from Luxembourg, MEP for the European People's Party. Hello and welcome.
Good day to you. And
we are also joined by Holger Winkelmann from our German partner of Euranet Plus, AMS.
Hello.
Hi, Holger. Mr. Theurer, 1 month ago, you complained about members of this special committee to slow down the work of the committee. Is this committee something just to talk, or is it really ready to take action?
First of all, we have to take in mind that already in November I suggested on behalf of the ALDE group in the European Parliament to establish the special committee. There we had the reservations.
Okay, we're not going into the history.
No, I mean, that's important, because if we have companies having a turnover of more than 3 billion and paying only less than 1% of taxes, we have to investigate as European Parliament. And indeed, we lost in the beginning a lot of time. We had the feeling that there were interferences by groups, but the criticism worked.
Why?
And now we are accelerating.
Why did they do that? What do you think?
I can only speculate on that, but you know, if we discussed between political groups which documents we really demand from the Commission, I think that is a loss of time. We have to concentrate how we can stop this aggressive tax avoidance.
What is the most possible best outcome do you expect? A very short answer, please.
The best outcome is that the member states who are responsible take action and establish an automatic information exchange, a common tax base, and close the loopholes which lead to tax avoidance. Okay,
it will be difficult from the Parliament to put some pressure on that, but we are going to discuss about it. Mr. Engel, you said you're from Luxembourg, somehow related in a special way to this topic. You said in a previous interview that you don't really know why this committee was set up. What was your personal motivation to get a member of it?
Well, call it an acute interest in matters tax-related. It must be a genetic default that Luxembourgers tend to have. Even though I notice with the electation that we are far from being the only ones who indulge in practices that may seem reprehensible to some. And the degree of fantasies to which some member states have gone in order to attract companies to their shores or to their territory is such that we would really have to have a council debate on this of a most serious nature, and I haven't heard anything of that yet. For the rest, my reasons for always having been rather reserved about all this is that I believe that everything that this special committee does could just as well have been done by a standing committee. We have the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, which had all the necessary reports on the agenda already. This is, to a rather large extent, as the French would say, for the gallery, but then let's at least do something for the gallery.
Did you also have the impression that some members were trying to slow down the work of the committee, maybe to protect Jean-Claude Juncker, the President of the European Commission?
Well, that would have to include me if it were the case, because
so were you?
If it were not somebody like me, then who would it be? And I know that, as far as I'm concerned, it was not me. It was not my political group. It is known, and this has never been a secret from the very outset, that we were not the most fervent defenders of the institution of this committee, because, as I said, we believed that the Committee for Economic and Monetary Affairs would have been the place where to do what we're currently doing.
Okay, Sven Giegold, a Green member also of this special committee, said in an interview in this studio that the commitment of the committee will be measured by the fact whether Jean-Claude Juncker will be invited or not. And we have a question from Joachim Sisierski from Polski Radio on that.
One of the reasons this European Commission is very active and ambitious in fighting tax evasion is related to the fact that the president of the Commission is a citizen of Luxembourg. Jean-Claude Juncker announced he would attend the Tax Committee on July the 2nd to explain, together with Commissioner Moscovici, the Commission's actions against tax evasion. Are you going to ask Juncker about his own responsibility during his time as the Prime Minister of Luxembourg for 18 years and the tax rulings revealed in the LuxLeaks scandal from the same time? Or will you just let him explain his current plans?
Mr. Theurer, you always pleaded to invite Mr. Juncker, so what will happen?
First of all, I'm really content that Mr. Juncker will come. And of course, as we are investigating the tax rulings, we would like to know what was the practice in the past, what was the role of the governments, including the Luxembourg government, and what conclusions do we now draw out of it to stop it?
Mr. Engel, you kind of disagreed when you heard the question.
The thing is that Mr. Juncker has already explained in plenary of the European Parliament more than once what the practice was and how he was associated with it, and that is not something that he's going to explain any differently when he attends the committee. I'm rather content he comes because he would have to, because otherwise all sorts of things would be inferred from the fact that he would refuse, not want to, whatever,
so
attend the committees. Absolutely, absolutely. I'm in favor of him coming, and he will. We're going to have that next week. But it remains, if we are to investigate, then let it be so that we could invite Mr. Reinders, for all I know, still Minister of Belgium, the one who invented the excess profit rulings in 2004. Has anyone suggested that? Not that I heard.
So, yeah. Mr. Theurer, inviting Mr. Reinders.
I suggested in the first public meeting of the Taxe Committee also to invite, for instance, the German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble. I still hope that he will come. The French Minister will come on the 13th of July. And I also suggested to invite a former German Finance Minister, that is Mr. Steinbrück. So indeed, there are some questions because obviously the finance ministers were not able in an intergovernmental situation to stop this aggressive tax avoidance and tax evasion, and therefore I think now the member states should take the lead to establish the proposals, for instance, of a common corporate consolidated tax base.
Invented by Jean-Claude Juncker under a European Council presidency in 1997. Not much follow-up on that by the others.
Okay, not everything the committee was planning to do worked out, Holger.
Yeah, the committee invited multinationals like McDonald's, but they did not show up. So do you feel taken seriously in this part?
Of course not. we visited in the House of Commons in the UK the former president of the Public Account Committee they had Amazon and Google present there. We invited Amazon, Google, McDonald's, InBev, Deutsche Bank, and they refused to come. And from that point of view, I think that is not acceptable. I suggested we should put all those multinational companies who were invited and who refused to come on a blacklist, because it cannot be that they lobby us on all other issues, and if we want to discuss with them serious questions, they are not willing to come. That is not acceptable.
So what about the power of this committee? It seems to be rather weak, Mr. Engel.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And an inquiry committee would not have been that much less weak, because we are simply not in a national setting. Where committees of inquiry have the attributions of legal entities and of elements of the judicial system, which in the European context is just not the case. I do agree with Michael Theurer, however, that it's not normal that the said companies find time whenever they see fit to spend all the time that they want in parliamentary offices and parliamentary premises in order to get what they want. And if we once want something from them, namely a few answers to, well, maybe a few trickier questions, then we are not available, we can't, it's complicated, I don't know what. But indeed, the most we can do is name them and hope that we shame them.
How are you going to put some pressure, Mr. Theurer?
Yeah, what we can do is to discuss publicly about that, and we did that already, and we are glad that some companies came to the parliament and they survived, and it was really very helpful to come there. And I really suggest it's not a question of the special committee, it's a question of the power and the influence of the whole European Parliament, and therefore we really should suggest to our Parliament's president that if companies are not willing to cooperate, we should as a Parliament in future not invite them to come to the Parliament any longer.
When you invited came Mr. Antoine Deltour, he was the one giving the information to a journalist that led then to the LuxLeaks scandal. We all know about it. You, after this meeting, you said that whistleblowers should be protected in a better way. How can we do that?
Antoine Deltour and two other whistleblowers who were there in an in-camera meeting told us their story, and one of them, Herr Otte, he was jailed in Switzerland, and it is, from my point of view, morally not understandable that somebody like Mr. Otte, who informed the German tax administration, is now jailed for that. So perhaps it was not the right way by Antoine Deltour to look or to leak the information to the press. He said in our committee that he didn't intend it, that it was published with his name, but we have to establish a law framework where whistleblowers can give the informations to the tax administration, to the prosecutor, and that it must be secured that something is done. And in the US, for instance, the whistleblowers are much better protected, and they even get a certain amount of the money the companies have to pay back to the tax administrations.
Mr. Engel, you said that you don't understand Mr. Deltour. You said that he stole this information. Do you regret that this information is now public? Should it be right that the public doesn't know anything about companies who just pay like 3% taxes?
That's not the point. The point is that as far as I got this story, and anybody who was at that meeting when Deltour appeared can hardly have had any different impression, that the chap acted not out of his own volition and not because he had a sudden inspiration that the public needed to be informed by things that gone wrong, but that the instigation of all of this was by a journalist, and that Deltour was used in order to provide the said journalist with material that the said journalist could otherwise not have laid his hands on, and that in doing that, both broke the law.
Was it wrong that
broke the law?
So what do you suggest? No protection of whistleblowers?
I want to avoid a society where denunciation becomes a profession.
And therefore no legislation on whistleblowers?
As soon as I know what a whistleblower is supposed to be, I might reconsider this rather principled position. But what I see now and here, where just about anybody can just try and find somebody who helps them copy documents and then we blow it up in the public, potentially destroying not only fiscal elements of a company's identity, but potentially destroying the effectiveness of their commercial strategy, thereby harming people working for them, thereby harming the people that depend on the people working for them. That is not ethically superior to anything. That is wrong.
Mr. Theurer, do you see this danger also?
No, definitely not. But we are here in really troubled water. So in Germany, tax avoidance is a crime. Helping somebody to commit a crime is as well a crime. And now investigating into the tax competition practices of some jurisdictions and states revealed that there is at least a certain kind of evidence that we cannot exclude that there was a kind of collusion between states and the consultants and the enterprises, and we have to stop that. I'm convinced about.
Okay, we are almost at the end. Last week, the Commission made proposals to make taxation fairer and more transparent. This goes in a direction of tax harmonization, and we have got Florin Orban from Radio Romania on the phone, and he's got a question on that. Hello, Florin.
Hello, good day from Bucharest, and thank you, Danièle, for inviting me for this very interesting debate. Well, the tax harmonization in Europe will suppose tax increasing in the less developed EU countries such as Romania that could seriously affect the real income for the majority of the people here, income which is already low. My question is, do you as European legislator have in plan some compensation system or other measures to ease the possible negative effects?
Mr. Engel?
No, I think we have to get the topic straight. If we went about bringing taxation practices and possibly taxation levels in line, and that is not something the European Parliament can do because we're simply not competent for it, but if it were to be done by the ministers acting unanimously, then we would certainly not go about lowering the disposable income of any individual citizen of Romania, because we would not be attacking physical persons taxation, but we would be about corporate taxation. And corporate taxation would ideally happen in a more European traceable way than it currently does, no matter where a company has its headquarters or no matter where it operates. And if that is in Romania, the company will survive that. The point simply is, so far, all we have as an indication of possible things to come, apart from an increased exchange of information, is a move towards a common corporate tax base. The third C, the consolidated, is very much in question still. We haven't even talked about minimum rates, leave alone harmonized rates. So we're very, very far from anything truly harmonized happening. And by the way, I doubt that this would be a sensible approach to the things.
Mr. Theurer, you're in favor of tax competition. How can tax competition go together with tax avoidance?
I'm in favor of a fair tax competition, and that is really helping citizens as well. We have to create a level playing field because we have scientists who investigated it, and small and medium-sized enterprises are in a disadvantage up to 20-25% in comparison to multinationals who can reduce their own tax burden below 1%. So I think we are on the right way to tackle that. So we have to have a framework securing this fair competition, and that needs two preconditions we learned. That is this automatic information exchange and a common tax base, so the competition is on rates and not on the base.
So, but it will be up to member states to decide on that. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Theurer. Thank you, Mr. Engel. Thank you, Holger. Thank you all, and see you soon on You Talking to Me.